Shalom Chaverim. Hi friends, how are you? I am so excited to be back here live. I am Evelyn Goldfinger, aka Miss Eve, and I welcome you to this conversation about raising Jewish kids. I hope you had good Chagim, good Jewish holidays. This conversation is going to be in English. Esta conversación va a ser en inglés para aquellos que me siguen en español. Pero vamos a tener otras oportunidades en español. We will have another opportunities in Spanish. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Evonne Marzouk, and she is an amazing person and an author, and she wrote a novel called The Prophetess, and I will tell you all about it very soon. So a little bit about me, Evelyn Goldfinger, aka Miss Eve. I am a performer, an artist, a storyteller, a cantorial soloist. Yes, pretty busy this past month, thank God, with all the Chagim, Jewish holidays. And I am also an author. And this conversation about raising Jewish kids is brought to you by my new book, Words from My Heart, the hands-on Jewish prayer book, which invites children and their families and their classrooms to explore Jewish prayer and spirituality through a very experiential hands-on book, which with games, activities, they can cut, paste, even create their own prayers. And my campaign is live. The book is ready for pre-order. So if you'd like to take a look at it, look at the video, find out more about what brought me to write this book and how it can help children enhance their kavanah, their intention when connecting to a higher power, please read below. It's going to be there in the comments, or visit shalomeve.com or DM me and I'll be happy to share more about it. I'm so excited because you guys, we reached a third of our campaign and this is amazing. I'm so grateful for everybody who is supporting the book and sharing about it and posting about it. It's very exciting writing a book. It's something that comes from your heart and you want to explore and share it with the world, as I'm sure my co-author, colleague, and guest today will agree. So, Words from My Heart, the Handsome Jewish Prayer Book. Check it out. Share the word. Okay, now let's dive in. And I'm so blessed and happy to welcome and introduce you to Evonne Marzouk. And I'm going to read a little bit about her bio because it's really very interesting. Evonne Marzouk is the author of The Prophetess, published by Bancroft Press in 2019. She loves speaking to Jewish communities about Jewish spiritual concepts and empowering Jewish teens, girls, and women to grow into all their gifts. Learn more about her work at growintoyourgifts.com, and everything will be in the show notes or in the comments below. So let me invite, let's see. If you're there. Welcome.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I understand that this is your first Instagram Live.
Yes, I've done interviews on all the other platforms, but this is my first time doing this. How exciting.
It is exciting. I always like to think of it like radio style, where I started, because whatever happens, you guys out there, like whatever the audience is seeing, this is the real thing. So, we have to mind the noise and the feedback and all those things. So anyways, so happy to have you here. How are you today? How were your Chagim, your holidays?
They were fine. They were fine. I'm really, when we scheduled this, it seemed like a very long time because it was before the Chagim, and then all of a sudden the Chagim came, and then here we are. It's the end of October. It's amazing.
Right.
So.
It's literally acharei Chagim. There's an expression, modern Israel. You want to say something like in the future, someone acharei Chagim. Well, we're here. So
great. Now
let's dive in. Evonne, I would like for you to share with us about your novel, The Prophetess, and I would like to ask you what inspired you to write this. What was your journey?
Yeah, so one of the things is that I really wanted to explore what it's like to have a calling, like something that you're here to do that is like bigger than you. That's like and maybe and good, but like maybe big and hard, and like can cause all kinds of challenges in life as you are struggling with, how do I be that big person that I'm being called for? And in the story, the main character Rachel goes through that kind of journey where she's called for something, for greatness that she was beyond what she knew she was called for, and really has to like go through the challenges of what it takes to grow into that, gift that she has. And I think my goal is to have it really be a model, like a wisdom story for people who are, to use Jewish inspiration and Jewish wisdom to help them grow into their greatest callings, their biggest dreams, their biggest gifts.
Beautiful. And I've read the book. It is so inspiring. It's filled with um maybe the more fitting word, but Easter eggs, right? They're called when they have like these hidden gems um in the book, where you can see connections to Talmud and to Midrash and to all this heritage, and even how it describes, sharing with you, it's fat, Safed, the city, and if you even go there, you can feel that. And I had the opportunity to go to Israel after reading your book, and I was like, oh, I wonder where Rachel and all the prophets were. And I love the idea of having modern prophecy, and I was wondering how that connects with, as you know, I'm writing the book on spirituality and Jewish prayer. So you, in your book, the connection with God or the high power is described in such a powerful way. And I was wondering, what inspired you, what you based, maybe there was an experience in your life, or a wish in your life. How do you connect with a higher power?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I mean, I think that like one of the challenges, like, so this story is a story about prophecy, but one thing that I just always want to make clear is that I'm not encouraging people to like try and become prophets. That's not what the story is about. That's not what I'm asking people to come up with. Prophecy is this really high level of relationship with God, which is like basically out of reach for, for basically everyone right now. The Jewish tradition teaches that prophecy ended at the end of the beginning of the Second Temple period. And so we have like, but for me, like there's this, like, when I was learning that, as I was growing in my own Jewish practice, like it almost felt like what I was hearing was that like we didn't have a relationship with God anymore. And like that, like that God stopped talking to people. And I found that really like heartbreaking and hard and sad, and like spent a lot of time trying to understand like really what kind of relationship is available to us now. What is the relationship that we can have with God now? And for me, that's been a real journey of like, how to build that relationship, how to know what that is, how to feel connected, and how to understand, like, one thing that I've learned is that like we're souls, like here in this world. We're like, I learned from my teacher, Rav Avraham Sutton, like we're souls dressed in bodies. Like we think of ourselves as bodies with a soul, but really we're souls. And like through that, like through our souls, we're like directly connected to God at all times. And so like it's not like, I mean, it's really like not in heaven, right? Like God is here. Like it's like, and there's a ladder, there's a direct connection to God that we have at all times, and it's like clearing away some of the other things that get in the way so that that connection becomes more and more clear and present in our lives, is how it is for me.
I think that's beautiful, and I think that's a beautiful message. You work a lot with teens, with girls. This is a great like bat mitzvah gift, and like, because it's a hero's journey, right? And this is what a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah and all the right passage in diverse cultures are actually. We're telling you, okay, you're not a child anymore. You're in your journey into adulthood, and this is your right. This is your passage, and your book. Um, Describes that in such a powerful way. And what a beautiful message to say, you know what, prophecy might be over, but our relationship with God is not. And you have to build it, right? You just said that you have to build it, you have to work on it, you can discover it. It is there, but you still have to, I love how you say, you have to clear the way of like the things that are in the way. So it's not sometimes about doing more, it's about taking out what is unnecessary.
Yeah, and there's so many distractions in life that really compete for like authentic connection with other people, let alone, even and obviously very much so with God. And so clearing those kinds of things away, like being able to hear our own internal voice, being able to hear what our, kind of deepest wisdom is telling us. I feel like that's really where it begins.
So I guess that's where the name heroine whisperer comes from.
Right. So the prophetess is what we is like a heroine's journey. So in literature, like we have this story called the hero's journey, right? But people are very familiar with the hero's journey. It's like The Hobbit and like Harry Potter and all, every superhero. Um, but there's a different archetypal story that's a heroine's journey that's slightly different. And it's actually the foundation of stories like The Wizard of Oz and the Frozen stories are based on that foundation. And so the thing about the heroine's journey, and I've done some teaching about this and some other programs related to it, is that like women, like when they hear it's a 9-stage process, but when women hear the stages, like they just immediately get it. It's like, wow, that I really understand that. And women often relate more directly to the heroine's journey than they do to the hero story. Because it includes in it like that sort of moment in life where it's like this world, I thought this world that I'm living in is perfect, but maybe it's not so perfect after all. Maybe there's something that's not quite right about this that I need to, like, something needs to change here, or I need to change, or some adjustment needs to happen. I can no longer live in this sort of perfect world that's not so perfect. There's like a moment in the heroine's journey when it feels like it's not possible to go on. And the only way to go on is through support of other people. And the end of the heroine's journey is this experience of like coming back to the original, like to the place where we began with new, deeper wisdom. And these kinds of like stages that are so essential to the heroine's journey, like most women can really recognize those moments in their lives, like as part of their own journey. And so I think like the idea, what's interesting about the prophetess is that like that heroine's journey is almost never applied to Jewish stories. And so like this book kind of weaves together that kind of like women's wisdom with Jewish wisdom in a way that speaks with Jewish wisdom to the heart of women. And we don't have very many books like that. So I was really eager to write one to be able to include that, to like the women's story with the Jewish wisdom in it. And so yeah, I mean, I see myself as somebody who's here to inspire heroines, to everyone to find their inner heroine. And the truth is that even men have an inner heroine. Like, but to find that sort of inner part that is like ready to grow, ready to thrive and be the biggest that we can be. So that's why I call myself Heroine Whisperer on Instagram. This idea that like I'm whispering to the heroines, like, come on, we have growing to do together.
Thank you, Evonne. We have a question from our live audience, and thank you everybody for joining us today. So the question is, and I think it's great to clarify, thank you for asking, how is the heroine's journey different from the hero's journey?
So they both have 9 stages, and there are several different differences, and I actually developed this a little bit in other places, so I'll just say it briefly now, and I'm happy to, if anyone has further questions, or there's lots of more resources explaining this, but I'll just say briefly that the difference is, in my mind, a hero's journey is linear. The hero moves in the starts out in a particular place and is going towards some kind of goal, and the goal is like some sort of success, like some sort of tangible like physical success. He also grows in the process. Like we know that like in the story, like he grows, but in the end, like he gets the girl, he gets the money, he gets the award, he gets, those kinds of things. That's kind of like how the hero's journey, that's how we know he won, right? A heroine's journey is circular. She comes back to where she started from, but she has grown and changed. And so everything has changed because she has grown. And I think that like for me, that's the most important part of the difference, is that like we know like life is circular. You keep coming back, but hopefully, and this is a very Jewish concept, right? You kind of keep coming back to where you were, but you're different. You've grown, and in the process, you're ascending and you're growing.
Thank you for that. And feel free, we can put a link to if you have like something to suggest, or yeah, people can DM for that. For all our literature nerds, that I consider myself one of them. I love all the things about storytelling and the different structures. So fascinating. Thank you. And so you have this girl go on a very difficult journey, and I know we work a lot with teens, with girls mostly. So how do you connect your book to that? And when you present your book and you have your workshop, or when teens read your book, what do you expect them to get into? Because as you said, it's not about being a prophet, right? So I think your message is so important, but I would love for you to elaborate. What moves you to work specifically with teens?
Yeah, so I've done this beautiful bat mitzvah program with kids, with girls in a bat mitzvah club, and what we do is like we kind of work through like identifying what's a gift, like looking at like what in Jewish tradition, like we have lots of feminine, like what I call like Jewish feminine superheroes, like women in Tanakh who are really displaying all kinds of extraordinary gifts. Gifts that are like, you know, showing incredible strength, like Sarah, who like leaves her home with her husband and has to go through all of these challenges, and also is the one who is able to speak truth to Abraham when he can't hear it. um, like Miriam, who, you know, was clear enough about the fact that they were going to be saved, that she and all the women brought tambourines with them so that they could dance, right? There are all kinds of really strong and powerful gifts that that the women in our tradition can teach us. And usually what I do is begin that way, with people understanding like what are the super heroines in Tanakh that they most relate to, and what gifts do they see in them. And and from then we can have a conversation about what your gifts are, both the gifts that you already know you have, and then gifts that you're looking to grow into. And with the bat mitzvah girls, I actually had a table where they could pick cards that enabled them to like explore gifts that might have specifically related to them. And we went through a series of different exercises in order to like kind of have them identify at least one gift that they'd like to grow into. And one thing that I like to do with programs both for teens and for adults is to do a little guided meditation, like a little opportunity to connect to the deepest part of ourselves. And for some people, this is the first time they've done such a thing, and it can be a very powerful experience. And I always say, like, we don't like when people think of meditation, a lot of times they think of like Zen Buddhism, but Jewish tradition has a deep meditation tradition that there's so much that we can learn from, and it's a little bit different from the Eastern meditation traditions. And so it's kind of like, you know, shaped for our souls, let's say. Like it's, you know, it's something that feels familiar when we do it. So so those are the kinds of things that I like to offer to people, and to give them the chance to like kind of work deeply with what they think they're growing into, and then give them a chance to process that by sharing or by writing. I did this program with these bat mitzvah girls, and like I had to stop them from writing. They just were writing and writing and writing. Like they just had so much to say about this meditation experience that they had had. And it was time to move on. So I was like, you know, well, you can keep writing, or you can write it another time, but it was such a deep experience for them. And for teens in particular, what I would say is like, not every teen is ready for spirituality, right? Like for many teens, that's just not where they are. And that's fine. Like we all kind of reach these kinds of stages, you know, points at different stages in our lives. But it's so useful to introduce Jewish spirituality to teens, to just let them know that it's there, to give them some kind of insight into that this structure exists. Because you know, chances are that there's going to come a moment in their life where spirituality would be helpful to them. And if we've planted those seeds, then, you know, then when they know what they're looking for, they can find it. They can find it within their, within our own beautiful, rich, incredibly deep tradition.
I agree. I agree. And I actually was teaching a workshop yesterday for teachers, and I use this in the book, my book too, that just as we have a body and mind and emotions, we also have a spiritual aspect. We have a soulfulness. You don't want to call it a soul directly. It's there. And as you can say, I am a person who exercises and I'm all about my body and I do weights and or maybe the people know I'm like sort of here in my intellect. I'm a brainiac. Or some people say, oh, forget about that. I'm super emotional. You know, everything comes from what I'm feeling. And there are some people, but it's all part of who we are. It's there. Like you said, it's there. So, not knowing that, we are actually not encouraging teens, or in my case children, to explore and ask themselves that it's amazing, it's beautiful, and it's actually less threatening than people think to talk about spirituality, because we did a whole exercise on gratitude, right, which is one of the concepts in my book, gratitude, to dance, to say thank you. And as Yehudim, as Jews, actually literally it means to be a Yehudit, to leodot, to thank God. So gratitude is, to me, it's like the basis of all. You can have gratitude, it's a portal, right? So, and people, even like teens, you can say, oh, you're not spiritual. Hey, do you feel gratitude? Can you think that you're thankful for something? And some people said, of course. And I have a gratitude practice. And they don't maybe know that that's also spiritual, right?
Right.
And like you said, you can see dancing as something very body-like, like very kinetic. But some people see dancing as a spiritual experience or a narcissistic experience. So it's all about the emotions. So it depends on how you read the thing. But what I'm saying is, it's beautiful what you're saying. I completely agree that you have to open those portals. You have to open the doors and say, this is here for you. And I think that the concept of B'nai Mitzvah nowadays, for some people, it's mm-hmm. Jewish tradition is here for you. It's part of who you are. It's part of your heritage. And this is your treasure, right? This is a treasure that we are the keepers. And now it's yours. It's yours to explore and to keep, to grapple with. But you need to know that it's there. Whether you're going to go on the journey or not, hopefully you will, right? Because it's amazing. But it's here. So I really think that you're saying so special. And I love the idea of growing into your gifts, because it's not about discovering gifts or you know, in a sense that I think it's a very special way how you put that phrase together. And I know that you're very intentional. So could you elaborate what is growing into your gift? What does it entitle, please?
Yeah, so this starts in my novel, The Prophetess. It begins with Rachel's grandfather, who unfortunately dies at the very beginning of the story, but plays a very, very important role in the story and played a very important role in Rachel's life as she was growing up. And he had given her a prayer book, and in the prayer book, he wrote in the margins, "For Rachel, may she grow into all her gifts." And after he dies, this becomes something that Rachel is really wrestling with. Like, what are my gifts? What does that even mean? How would I do that? What gifts did he see in me that I don't know? And it's interesting, like, so my son is 8, and he just the other day asked me, like, what does that mean, mommy, to like grow into your gifts? What is that like? What is that like? Do I have gifts? What do you mean when you say that? And so it's really an interesting thing to like think about how to explain it to a child. Like and what I said, and what I think is relevant for everyone, is like your gifts that you are born with or that you have are like, you know, like you could almost think of them as clothing that's too big for you, right? Like it kind of, you know, you're there you are, and like you like kind of here come into the world, and like as we grow, like we're like little children, and then we grow. But we have all this sort of latent potential and power inside of us. And it's almost like a dress or a shirt that's much too big for us. And as we grow into those like into those gifts, into those potentials. And sometimes that takes work on our part. And sometimes it's just natural as growing into clothing. And we just, as time goes by and life goes on, like we just grow into things, and gifts that were there for us sort of unfold as we grow. And Jewish mysticism has this beautiful concept that like that we're vessels, and we're vessels for light that God is giving us. And that channel that is like the way that we get all the blessings and all the wisdom that we need for our lives, that are here for our lives. And the more that but there's only like, somehow it's like hard to visualize, but somehow like we can only fit as much as our vessel, like of those blessings and wisdom, as our vessel is big enough for. And so like it's really this idea of like we grow and our vessel expands and we become a bigger sort of container for the holy light that God is sending to us, that is giving us what we want, the blessing and the wisdom, and what we need to know about what's next for us, and the Ruach HaKodesh, like the divine inspiration, all of those things that like it comes into our vessel. And part of how we get more and more blessing and wisdom in life is by expanding our vessel, by growing. And so that's really what I mean. Like we grow, and then our gifts can come to us, and then we can use them in a way that we're meant to use them here in this world.
I love that. I love that your son, who's 8 years old, you can say that to him in a very very the metaphor of the clothing, right? And you mentioned Frozen. I was thinking about Elsa, and she has this power, right? She has the power of with the snow and all that stuff. You can see at the beginning of the movie, right? It's too big for her. She doesn't know what to do. Like she thinks it's a curse. She takes the wrong way. She doesn't have guidance, definitely. And so sometimes there are things that we grapple with, and that they might seem even like a curse or something, that why am I? And sometimes it does take work on your part, or go into the journey. But if you can grow into that, it's exactly love, right? How you vibrate. And I think it's so important. So I love this concept, growing into your gifts. And the other thing that I love is that I'm going to go back to this, that you're talking to teens that are girls or that identified with the feminine. And it's so important to empower women, even at a young age. When you describe the heroine's journey, one of the things that you say is that things are not perfect. And as girls, we are taught, maybe nowadays less, but definitely in history, that we should be perfect and everything should be fine, and we should put a strong face, and everything should be neat and clean. And that's just not how reality is. And so your work with teenagers, and my conversations about little kids, because this is mostly what I do. This part, to inspire girls to say, you know what? It's not meant to be all neat and tidy. And if there's something that is wrong, go on a journey and try to grow, right? And rearrange things. So I think that what you're doing with teens through your book and through your workshops, right, is so needed.
Thank you. I think, and I think I know that most of your audience is teens and dealing with children, but I'll just say that like, this is something that all women can really relate to. And so, and many of the programs that I do are for adult women, and my book is really often, I've used it in book club, women have used it for book clubs. And I can, really enjoy having deep conversations with women about spirituality, about the book. I think this one thing that I kind of have always said about this book is it's like for teen girls, and all of us with the teen girl still living somewhere inside of us, right? Like we're all sort of in this growing phase, and especially women, we go through cycles in our lives. We go through we live different lives. We go through different periods that, have different themes to them. And so we're constantly growing, and we're always kind of going to that next adventure, or, maybe we're in the middle of one adventure, but that's, or one sort of phase in life, but that phase of life is going to move, and then we'll go to the next phase. And so we're always growing, and there are always you know, if you're alive, you still have gifts to grow into. There are always dreams that we still have to fulfill even when we're grown. And I think, you know, obviously like for teens, and I should just say, like, we don't only work, I mean, I a Jewish educator taught the prophetess this past year with her class, with her Hebrew high school class, and she did it with co-ed. Like, it doesn't just have to be with girls, because planting the seeds of spirituality is something that boys can benefit from too. So, but there's certainly, you know, all of us have things that we're still growing into. And I think what you said about not needing to be perfect is a message that everyone needs to hear right now. Like, you know, especially in this Instagram world, right, where everyone's like, well, that, you know, I can never live up to that thing. You know, everyone needs to know that like where you are is perfect, and there's an opportunity to grow.
Thank you. And I was just thinking as that, like Harry Potter, not only for boys and girls and, you know, all gender, really too. And it's okay to have the feminine energy into a book and to learn from that. So it's, if it's co-ed, good for them, because guess what? There's a reason why there are women in the planet, maybe, right? No, maybe. So why is it so normal and natural for us to say, yes, you can read Harry Potter, but this book is about a young girl auditioning, so this is for girls.
Right. It's really, I mean, I think it's a challenge of literature. But I think um, but I do want to say, like, you know, when we talk about sort of feminine gifts or feminine, you know, feminine superpowers, like, they're not, like, I say feminine rather than female, right? Because I'm not really talking about gender as much as I'm talking about, you know, the kind, like, in this society, in this world, we sort of identify certain things as feminine, and sometimes we tend to undervalue those things. Certain feminine gifts we sometimes tend to undervalue, like compassion and kindness and you know, empathy and insight, you know, these kinds of things. Like, those are, you know, we sort of think of them traditionally as feminine gifts, but we sometimes undervalue them, and that has an impact on both girls and boys. Like, there's a, you know, because these kinds of gifts are maybe what the world needs most right now. So I think, you know, and there's not, it doesn't, it doesn't imply anything. Like, I mean, you know, I know there's a lot of sort of gender conversations happening, but also, like, boys who are just, you know, regular boys can also have lots of feminine gifts, and we should empower that too. And we should empower, like, every, you know, every gender to grow into, you know, to strengthen that part of themselves if that's what calls to them, because it can be enriching for everyone.
Thank you, Yvonne. My two last questions for you today. One, I would love for you if you can elaborate shortly a little bit more about Jewish meditation, because I think it's so rich, and I know you have a background in it, how it might be a little bit different from the meditation from the Far East we're most used to, or the from India, I guess. Um, and the other thing, because, you know, we love going backstage a little bit about how you write a novel, and you know, what's the work behind it. So if you could address those two, maybe in for our close, I think that would be
Wait,
interesting.
so the second question was about the background journey of writing the novel. The first question was about Jewish meditation. Okay, here we go. So, Jewish meditation. So as I understand it, right, like, the Eastern religions, like, their approach to meditation is kind of like, it's about kind of getting to, like, a space of, like, quiet, like a quiet mind, a quiet place, like quieting all those voices in the head, and like kind of reaching this place of, like, non-reactivity, like that you don't necessarily react to the things that are there, and like that kind of sort of quiet, like, quiet mind is sort of the goal. And it's so that's fine, like, that's great, but I don't think that that's exactly what Jewish meditation aims for. I think Jewish meditation is about connecting to your deepest self and to God. And so there are many different forms of this. There are many different kinds of Jewish meditation. There's actually a great book by R.J. Kaplan that really goes into a lot of the details. But what I like to do, what I like to do when I guide meditation is to take people on a journey that helps them reach to their deepest self. And I have a guided meditation that does this that is on my website. That's like a free download in case people are interested in seeing it. Um, and and I like to kind of help people take that journey. And for myself personally, I'm really Hitbo Dedut, this sort of Jewish meditation that's based on practices of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. This idea of walking meditation, of like walking and talking to God and just connecting to the deepest part of ourselves by through, just having conversation in a beautiful place and like while moving. To me, that's like, for me, that's like the most empowering kind of meditation. I'm not so great at sitting still. um, but I think people should understand there are a range of different ways that Jewish meditation lots of different kinds of forms. And if this speaks to you, there is a form that will speak to you. There's a form that will help you connect to the deepest part of yourself and to your own deepest wisdom, and that is enriching. And so that's what I think Jewish meditation can offer to this meditation conversation, and that I find especially beautiful about it.
And in your book, there's a point where there's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and there's this character who's going to be a guide for Rachel, and the person is sort of what you're describing, right? To the higher self and to God through his tefillah, through his prayer. Prayer can also be, Jewish prayer can also be that.
Definitely.
Always on, but when it is, right? When you can just be there and talk to God and reach the highest and the innermost most. I was thinking about that, and I also embodied.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like the deeper your relationship with God, through other, it also certainly tefillah is a key piece of the way we connect to God, both formal and informal prayer. And we can use both to kind of help ourselves kind of build authentic connections. And I think like because of the way that the way that the soul is structured, like actually like the channel basically does enable us, like as we kind of become deeper to our souls and we use that kind of spiritual ladder to connect to God, like along the way we also connect to deeper parts of ourselves and to other people more authentically. And so like and so that's like part of the process. It's enriching in all these different ways in our lives.
So get behind the scenes.
Okay, so this novel took me 20 years to write. It was an incredible journey. It was a lot of growing into my own gifts in order to be able to write it. I spent like a lot of time like kind of setting goals and then not meeting them, or spending a lot of time like rewriting the first 100 pages because I kept trying to get them right, and until a writing coach pointed out to me that I like actually didn't have like a complete draft, even though I've been working on it for years. And what I realized like through that process, like I was actually not writing the parts that were uncomfortable to me. There were like parts that I was struggled with and I just didn't write, even though I kept writing all these other scenes over and over again. I was like, those were kind of like in the like fill in here kind of thing. And so for me, like a part of the process was growing into being willing to be with the uncomfortable parts. And I know that not everybody like wants to write a novel, but I feel like that's actually like a really good metaphor for any kind of gift or dream or calling that you have. Like sometimes you have to, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a lot more time than you thought, and you have to keep coming back to it. Sometimes you're not ready yet. And, even though it feels good, it's like, this isn't the moment. And sometimes you have to deal with and work through the things that are really uncomfortable in order to kind of get to the place that you need to do what needs to be done. And I think that I hope that everyone could kind of like, think about what their dream is, the thing is that they like to do, and think like, where can I grow, or what's next, what's the next step for that? Because I do believe that like the world gets better to the extent that people are living consistent with their highest truth and consistent with their calling and their deepest dreams. And so I hope that the more people do that, and that, the world can be improved through that.
I love that. I love that. It's a beautiful also quote for you. I think that we have so many interesting, juicy points from thank you that we can talk about with our teens, with our women, with our kids, with our families, right? How to grow into our gifts, how to be able to willing to get better with our inner truth, and also how to work through our what's uncomfortable, and how growing into our gift might take time and work on our part, and because sometimes we like to have like these top tips or takeaways, so I think they're there, and they're beautiful. Before we say long goodbye to everybody, please share with us, Evonne, how people can find you, how can they get your lovely meditation. I'm so happy you asked that question. I'm gonna go get it. I'm very I love that, right? The fact that we can connect Judaism with that part of our consciousness. So let us know where people can find you, your book, and all the good things.
Yeah, so okay, so here's what the books look like. This is called The Prophetess. This is a novel. And it's available on my website. Signed copies are available on my website, along with bat mitzvah packages that are customized, where I can sign them and address them specifically to the mitzvah girl of your choice. The bat mitzvah packages include inspiring stickers and a journal with a pen that says "Grow into all your gifts," and Shabbat candles, and it's like a package that can really empower bat mitzvah girl to grow into all her gifts. I also have a heroine's journal that's a free printable on my website, which brings some of the gifts, some of the lessons of the prophetess into like your own life. It's a 12 lessons to a little workbook for you to kind of work through what are my gifts and what am I growing into. And at the end, you can write down what gifts you say you're ready to grow into, and then like cut out a little piece of paper that you can hang in your office or that you can put into your prayer book. Where you can kind of reflect on and continue to work on and pray on that you want to grow into those gifts. And the guided meditation and lots of resources for Jewish educators also on the website. And all of that is at growintoyourgifts.com. You can also follow me here on Instagram at Heroine Whisperer. I'm always creating new content with a goal of empowering heroines and everyone who has a heroine inside of them. And I just really, and the last thing I just wanted to say is that I love doing programs like we were talking about for teens, for bat mitzvah girls, for adults, for book clubs, and I would love to do that with you. So if that's something of interest, that's also on my website, what the programs are, and I'm happy to talk to communities about doing that. And I just wanted to say last that like I love your prayer book that you're putting together, and I just want to encourage everyone to support your campaign, because I think it's going to be an incredible resource for the community. So
thank you so much. It's so generous of you, Evonne. For looking through the book, I'm so excited. I think it's different manifestations of trying to this portal for kids, for families, resources, and I think that's why the conversation is so deep and inspiring. At least for me it was, and I hope for everybody watching and joining. That some people are asking, will this be recorded? Yes, this will live online, hopefully on Raising Jewish Kids podcast. So I'm so grateful that you were here today, and for everybody else watching, thank you also for joining us. And next week we will have Ben Romano here. Ben is also a musician, he's an educator, and he is writing a new book called well, I Have a Choice. And if I may take, so sorry about this, but I will correct it soon. But it's all about having a choice, and I saw it, and it's beautiful, and it's in pre-production. So I guess writing is in the air. So how about you at home? Do you have a book in your head, your heart? And if it takes you 20 years into the making,
yes, 20 years.
And if you're doing the 20th draft, that'll be me. Please do share. We would love to hear more about you. DM Evonne, DM me, and thank you, Evonne. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and for inviting all of us into our gift.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.